I am joined by Hanane Hamraoui from HDF Energy and also by Stefan Büttner, Director Global Strategy and Impact, Institute for Energy Efficiency in Production of the University of Stuttgart. Thank you guys for being here. We are having a conversation about how we can make the energy transition happen and get into a climate neutral industry. I want to give you guys the opportunity to firstly briefly explain what each respective organization stands for. So you are the Vice President of HDF Energy. What are your main ambitions and of the organization?
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me here. So HDF Energy is a company that develops some hydrogen infrastructure. So the hydrogen will be used mainly for the industry, but also to decarbonize the electricity grid, because the hydrogen, it's a formidable energy carrier to store the renewable energy. So you can use the hydrogen as a very big storage. So HDF, the mission is really to develop this kind of infrastructure in order to make this energy transition happening.
I've seen a quote that you've said last year at the Berlin Energy Transition Dialogue, where you said we need to make green hydrogen energy more competitive. So how has the process been so far? Have we progressed? Is that still a position that you hold?
Yeah, 2022 was really busy for the hydrogen. I think everyone know now what is hydrogen. There is a good momentum on the fact that we need to develop massively the hydrogen. So basically what I said last year is that the concept of the technology is ready. We know how to produce hydrogen. We know how to produce electrolyzer. We know how to produce fuel cells, but not at the good scale. So when we talk about having massive hydrogen production, so at a gigawatt scale, it means that the electrolyzer as well has to reach, this kind of scale. So 2022 was really focusing on how we can scale up, the technology. So there was a lot of projects, and in the Europe, they have financed massively. They have give the right, to the member state to finance massively some electrolyzer companies through the IPCEI program. And there was also the second fact is, okay, you have the technology that will be ready in the next years, to build this big hydrogen production project. But we need also to have who is going to consume this hydrogen. So mainly it will be the industry sector first, and on the industry as well. This past year was focusing on how we can change some process internally, like for the cement industry, for the steel industry, to be able to accept, the hydrogen to decarbonize this kind of industry. So things are moving, maybe not at the speed that we would like, but the private sector is mobilized for the hydrogen. We heard a lot today and yesterday about the public sector as well. So hopefully this 2023 year will be the year where we will have some project that reach what we call the FID, so the financial close. It means that the project can be financed and also it can start, the construction. And this is what we have succeeded in my company to develop a first project that reach, this financial close with some hydrogen inside. And this kind of project are really needed in order to speed up, the ramp up of the hydrogen economy.
Mr. Büttner, I want to bring you in from your background of the Institute for Energy Efficiency at the University of Stuttgart. We have heard a decarbonization. Why is this so crucial? Why is green hydrogen power and decarbonization so important, especially from the background of that you come from the research background?
Well, decarbonization in industry is important, first and foremost, because hydrogen is important, but it will take some time until it's available in sufficient amounts. And essentially, it's determining whether or not we are able to reach net zero at all. That is because all products that are produced for any sectors, be it buildings, be it industry, be it fabrics, electronics, their footprint, their lifetime footprint is decided upon on the planning phase within companies, and if we empower that industrial sector to deliver net zero products, only then we have a chance. And hydrogen is one of the solutions to get there. However, we need to look at the other forms of energy as well, and not only an energy supply side. The key is in empowering companies to improve the demand side, so make better use of the energy that is there. avoid any sort of waste energy, look into the processes. So, for example, process decarbonization, energy efficiency, identifying waste energy, and heat recovery is one of the key things, particularly in the energy crisis, because about 60% of industrial energy consumption is heating and cooling efficiency energy. And therefore, creating that flexibility either in terms of electricity, so to adjust to the availability of renewable electricity or renewable energy is one of the components. The other one is being able to utilize the waste heat potentials. And that is an area that we unfortunately have overlooked in the past. And that is also an area where the individuals in the companies have a huge opportunity also to reduce consumption quickly in the short term. With not so many investments, you can potentially save about 15 to 20% already, depending on which type of industry that is. And of course, digital solutions help you to identify anomalies, help you to identify potentials. So only if I meter my consumption, I can get a better idea on where I can make which savings, and it also helps me to identify the optimal intervention to improve myself or to find the right operating mechanisms. For example, there's a project called Climate Solutions for Industries, where the weather is taken into consideration, water extraction, availability of power. So really a lot is possible on that front, yeah.
There seems to be an agreement that we need to move to a green hydrogen. At the same time, we live in a system where there's political decision makers, there's policies. So how, and I would start with you, Ms. Hamraoui, how do you feel as though that policies and political decisions contribute or maybe hinder what is necessary to make that step into more green hydrogen?
Yeah, because we know how to use the hydrogen to decarbonize the industry. It can decarbonize the industry, decarbonize the mobility, decarbonize the electricity sector as well. So this is well known. Now we need that. What is green hydrogen? How do we qualify the hydrogen? It's green, it's decarbonized. You know, there is a momentum today in Europe with the Delegated Act that was launched, I think, like 1 month ago, to say how we can qualify the hydrogen. That will be key in order to have, you know, the market that will be developed. And then after is because, you know, in the EU they want to oblige and to force that if we produce a hydrogen, it needs to be produced by an additional capacity of renewable energy. So it means that we will need to produce an additional capacity of renewable energy in order to connect some electrolyzer on it. So all of the mechanism has to be done, because if I take just the example of France, there is a lot of queue in order to connect, you know, the renewable energy into the grid. The capacity to connect this kind of electricity to the grid due to regulatory framework, to some permitting issue, it's very, very long. Like,
so the bureaucracy needs to be more simple.
Yes, exactly, more simple, because now they try to create like the mechanism that is really needed, but it's too slow. It's a little bit complicated. We need to speed up the process. The permitting process as well needs to be speed up. When I heard about some project that cannot connect to the grid, you know, until 2030, how can you make, you know, hydrogen project if we cannot connect, you know, before 2030? So this is on moving, you know, this is on track. People are working on it, but we really need to speed up. What the US has done, you know, with the Inflation Reduction Act, it was very quick, you know. Since last summer, they have launched, you know, this initiative. So I think in Europe as well, we need to speed up this kind of process, and then after. Of course, if we want to integrate the hydrogen into the industry, into the mobility, into the electricity sector, we need as well that the infrastructure has to be ready. Because today, like the demand side, they say, okay, I cannot have hydrogen because it's not available. But then after on the production side, they say, okay, but the demand is not secured as well. So, you know, it's always this chicken and egg problem.
Well, what would the good infrastructure look like? So if you say the infrastructure needs to be ready, what does need to happen exactly?
Yeah, if we talk about the mobility, for instance, we need a refueling station. So today we cannot have a hydrogen car without this HRS, the hydrogen refueling station. Then after, if we talk about infrastructure, we can talk also about the vehicles. The vehicles are not ready as well. So again, chicken and egg problem. The infrastructure can be as well, we will have a big hydrogen production where it makes sense, where you can have like sun or wind, or also we can use the nuclear as well as a mean to produce hydrogen, maybe hydropower, like all the country will not have the possibility to produce massively the hydrogen. So we will need then after to transport this hydrogen from the country where it makes sense until the country where the demand will be. So the infrastructure will look like a gas pipeline maybe to change the hydrogen into ammonia to be transported by boat. So all of this infrastructure, so it needs that the harbor, the port as well need to be ready. So it's true that if we wait until the fact that the demand will be secured and we don't develop the infrastructure, the demand will not also be in a position to be the first mover because they will wait also for the infrastructure. So this is this kind of problem that we need to solve, and I think that the public sector can have a big role to play. Mainly the infrastructure can be pushed by the public sector.
If we're speaking of vehicles and then H2 refuel stations, there is a necessity to make this transition understandable, to get these points across. So if we had more of these stations, would that be a possible opportunity to create more of a positive agreement to those changes and policies needed to make? Is that maybe a solution to the chicken egg problem, or what are things that need to happen?
Well, first of all, having the infrastructure is absolutely essential. Without powering the transition, we cannot power it. Because, of course, we can become more efficient in the consumption. However, we cannot avoid all consumption. Now, I think the key issue, and that is much overlooked, is that we need to become much better in explaining. And that is making all stakeholders, so that policymakers, that they cannot know all the details necessary. The same with civil society. They cannot be an expert in all the fields. They know their profession, but not other professions that much. But particularly also entrepreneurs and staff at companies, the workforce, to understand the why. Why is that important? Why should I do that? And make use of finding out of the pains that the companies perceive, particularly at this era of poly crisis, with COVID, with supply chain shocks, with the war, with energy prices, emission prices going up, inflation, all the lot, and shape the message accordingly. Because to many of these pains, the toolkit of decarbonization can present a healing, a cure, and so essentially, there are three types of companies: those that have perceived that pain and pressure for a long time already, and that know how to do it and that know how to tackle it. Then you have the set of companies that, in principle, understand that they need to do something, but the overall package is way too complex for them to grasp. How shall I be able to do that? I need help, because it's overwhelming. And then the last category, by far the most, and there's many smaller ones among those, is leave me alone, because I'm already under so much pressure from those different pains, not being aware or able to see how they can get out of there. They need to find the connection on how they can get there, how decarbonization can actually be their way out. And there, it's important to make them understand that, yes, they have the means to do something.
Well, what are common misunderstandings or misconceptions that people have? Because you've talked about, like, I can't follow, I don't understand. You want to make it tangible to the civil society, to employees. So is there certain things that where people are really confused about, or the like common myths that you now have the opportunity to say, no, it's actually not like that?
Too many. Just one of them. We're talking about awareness, right? Mm-hmm. Awareness is often solved by awareness about available technologies, but it's much more important to create perception, like implant the notion that, hey, you could do, for example, if I'm cold at home, why should I use waste heat recovery at home, for example? But then I realized, wait a moment, if I put a beanie on, I get warm. That's something I could do. Or I could switch off the camera or change the resolution. Oh, I have the means to do something. And then something strange happens in the mind, because then you can replicate. You have seen it by yourself, and then you can replicate. Because it's somehow embedded in people's minds. And if you bring that message across to many others, they see, if they get one example, they can replicate to their work environment, which is why it's so super crucial to get through to the workforce and listen to them and give them the chance. Because we have also found in empirical studies that companies where staff proposals are being considered twice as often exceed expectations if those measures are implemented.
Thank you. My final question would go to Ms. Hamraoui. I want to understand, your company also collaborates with countries who are less industrialized or less rich. How does this work, and how is the success rate with countries like South Africa or Indonesia or Vietnam? How is this working over there?
Yeah, it's true, everyone wants to work on hydrogen, because I think people understand that hydrogen can help to decarbonize a lot of sector in their country, but also hydrogen, it's a mean to re-industrialize their country as well, So, for instance, in South Africa, they have a very big challenge for the electricity market. I don't know if you have heard that the fact that they have some very long blackout during the day. So HDF is working to use the hydrogen as a way to store the renewable energy and to provide a power plant completely dispatchable with a firm power, stable. And we have been selected by ESCOM, the local utility grid, to develop some project on more than 1,000 hectares of land. And those kind of projects will be able to provide electricity for 1.6 million of inhabitants. So this kind of project where we have a collaboration between the public sector, because ESCOM it's a public company, and the private sector, in order to solve one issue and try to see how the hydrogen can help, on this issue, not only just to decarbonize, because for sure to decarbonize the electricity is a key, but also you need also to provide something to the country, saying that we will give you also some security in terms of energy access. So this kind of project that we are developing, this is quite of the same that we do also for Indonesia. There is a very big topic today for the Just Transition Energy Fund to go from the phase out of the coal power plant. For sure, the coal will not be able to be financed by the private sector, so we need to find an alternative solution, and hydrogen can play a role on that. So it's really a key to talk with this kind of government, to try to tell them that we can have a solution to decarbonize, but a solution that can be very interesting as well for their issue, not only to decarbonize. So this is very the key.
Thank you so very much for having been here. It was a great pleasure. Hanane Hamraoui for HDF Energy and Stefan Büttner related to the University of Stuttgart.